You hear the stories, the cold spots, the fleeting shadow, the bump in the night. But what if those aren't just spooky tales? What if they're pieces of a larger puzzle? Pieces connected by human experience, emotion, and memory. I'm Tiffany, a paranormal investigator and psychic medium. Here on Beyond Logic with Tiffany, we're stepping past the fear. We're not just hunting ghosts, we're seeking to humanize the paranormal, connect with the spirits, find compelling evidence, and finally connect the dots that link our world and the next. This is Beyond Logic with Tiffany. Hey everybody, I'm here with Cate. She is the owner of Spirits of Marco, which I think is just absolutely awesome because I'm going to be there in May and I'm super excited.
Yeah.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Good.
So, I guess my first question is what got you to buy the church in the first place?
Yeah, that's an interesting story a little bit. So after COVID, we sold our house, our cars, got rid of everything, and just traveled for a couple of years and quit our jobs and just we were in a spot we could do it and we just traveled. And after a couple of years, I started getting a little nervous, like we don't have a house. We should probably get back into a house. So we were just looking around. We couldn't really, at the time, we were in Florida. So we went to Mexico a few times, Florida, so just along the eastern beach, Texas. Oh, that's not eastern, but just along the beachy areas because we like the beach. But now we're in Indiana, so figure that out. But we were looking at houses and we really weren't finding much. And I kind of wanted something a little bit different anyway. So there's a website that it has like hospitals and churches and school buildings, all these old buildings that are no longer functioning as the business that they once were. And we saw this church, we saw this, and we saw an old general store. And it was between those two. And my husband, I didn't even see the church. My husband flew up from Florida and he looked at it and I said, is it structurally sound? And because it's 155 years old. And I said, is it something that we can renovate? It's going to take a lot of work, but is it something we can do fairly easily? And he looked at it and he said, yeah, it's in good shape. The general store was like a total gut. Like, so we picked the church partially because I think I just wanted the church. And then we could live here while we were renovating, which we thought was going to work out, but it really didn't. But so we just kind of bought it on a whim and packed it. So when we sold everything, the only thing we kept was what fit in like an 18-foot enclosed trailer. And yeah, we got rid of everything. And except just some personal things, my kids' things, and yes, that kind of stuff. And we the trailer was actually parked at my husband's parents' house and also in Indiana, about 2 hours from here. And we did everything online, bought the church, came up here, got our little trailer, brought it over, and moved in. And and then things started happening, just almost immediately. And so my husband never believed any of this. He was so very, very skeptical. I grew up in southeastern Kentucky. My grandma was Native American, Appalachian. So I've believed this. I mean, I grew up believing this thing, all this. So, but after we lived here for a while, he started to believe. We would hear walking and footsteps and whispers and shadows and those kind of things. And actually, some teams approached us and was like, do you want to do investigations? And so I had some teams come in and check it all out and kind of validate what we were seeing before I opened it up. And then finally last July, we opened it up for investigations. So that's how we came about owning a 155-year-old church.
It's just an incredible story.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I like it. I think it was so after we lived here, so the thing we didn't know, I was never in this area. I knew nothing about this area. We didn't know not, one person in this area. My husband's a truck driver, so we knew he could get a job anywhere. Um, but we didn't know anything about the area, nothing about the church or anything. So it was a pretty big jump. But I don't regret it. It's turned out well. But what we didn't know is we would have a lot of trouble finding people to do work. So my husband does a lot of the work, but he also works a lot himself. So between his work and working on the church, we tried to hire out a lot. And you can see behind me, like this is all like temporary railings and things like that. We did find someone to frame out the loft and everything, but it was a very slow process. So living here, we were living in the basement. It's like a sub basement, and it was just it wasn't so much the paranormal activity, nothing scary. There's nothing scary here. It's just, you just know there's other things here. It was more the mess and the constant cleanup. And whenever you would do work, everything downstairs would get dirty because the dust. And it was just a lot. So last July, about the time we opened it for investigations, we had a few investigations here before we bought the other house, but we would have to board the dogs and that kind of stuff because they make noise, and then we would have to be super quiet. And so we ended up buying another house, and now it's open. Open. If you book a night here, you get the entire place. There's no dogs, there's no animals. We're not here, so. Um, but so the question always comes now is, when you finish it, what are you going to do? Are you going to move back in, or are you going to? So I don't know. We haven't figured that out yet. We're still a ways out from finishing it. So we'll just kind of see what happens. And we thought about maybe a haunted Airbnb or something, but I'd really like to move back in because it's a really cool place, but I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Oh, okay. That's really neat. That's you have such an incredible story with all this whole thing. This is actually like not what I expected at
No,
all, to be
really?
honest. I mean, most people that I've talked to that own like other places are like, "Oh yeah, we were seeking out a haunted place," and that's just, how we came about it. So your story is just so unique, and I love that.
Yeah. I mean, I assumed with it being 155 years old, it being a church and things like that, I assumed there would be energy here that I could live with. I never expected it to turn into what it's turned into. So,
It's really neat. So I have kind of an odd question, I
okay.
guess. Is one of the basements like have stone walls and like dirt on the ground?
So, yes. So, the church, when it was originally built, there was no basement. In the
Okay.
1940s, they lifted the church and they dug out a basement. And that's all like the stone, like the cinder block walls and cement floor. Really fun living. Let me just, it was great living down there. But under the bell tower, that must have been like an original crawl space because that's dirt floor and stone walls. So that must be part of the original church. So it's about a 10 by 10-foot section that has the dirt floor and stuff.
Okay, and it's not split at all? Like
What
it's
do you
not
mean?
split off. Like some basements have uh, like a cistern almost, like something like that, like it doesn't have a split in it.
Um, I don't know if I understand what you mean by a split.
I'm trying like a different room almost,
It is. It's a different room. It's so when you go down the steps to the basement, there's like a little hatch type door that
okay,
opens up, and and you have to like climb up into the crawl space.
okay.
It's attached, but it's separate. It's not
Yeah.
part of the basement like where we lived, or like they had like fish fries and receptions and things like that. It's part of it, but it's not really because there is access to it, but I don't know that anyone would ever get in there.
Okay. Did they do like school anything like that in there? Like a Sunday school type thing, do you know? Is that in any of the
Oh,
history?
oh no, it's small. It's very small. Like you can't stand up in it.
Oh, I just meant in either one of the basements. Like even in the one
Um,
that you guys were in, was there like a school area or anything like that?
no. Oh, you know what you're probably thinking about? So at some point, I don't know the year, I haven't found that documentation yet, but they added like a little room to the side that is kind of separate. I mean, it's attached, but it's a separate little room. And that was where it was like the office, and that's where they did Sunday school.
Okay.
Maybe
I,
that's what you're picking up.
maybe. I don't know what I'm thinking of, to be quite
Oh,
honest. I'm very hesitant about this part, but I have dreams sometimes about places that I've never been before.
hmm.
And for some reason, when I saw like when you posted about the church, that was the first thing that popped into my head was maybe it was there. So I'm just trying to piece my own pieces together. So I
Hmm.
thought, I mean, it was like a really odd question. So I was just wondering.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how else to describe it. It's separate. It's not really underground though. It's kind of level. It's a little bit underground, I guess. The little office bathroom area. And I know they did say they had Sunday school back there. So I don't know. Maybe they had, but it's a very small room. So maybe if they had a larger Sunday school group, they did it in the basement.
Okay.
I don't know.
That was just surely my own curiosity, so I
Okay.
appreciate you
Yeah.
answering.
Yeah.
So, do you do any investigations or anything like of your own likings or
I'm not part of a group or anything. I'll tag along with people and I'll go to different places. It's kind of, I don't want to say I've lost interest. I haven't lost interest, but I think you have a different perspective a little bit when you live in it all the time. You're like, why should I go somewhere? I can just go and stay at the church. And then it's also timing. It's just that we are so busy with work and then the church, and then we have this other house, and it's hard to get away. But I do. I actually I said I grew up in southeastern Kentucky, but in my adult life, I was in northern Kentucky, near Bobby Mackey's. So that was like do you know Bobby Mackey's? Oh my gosh, you're missing out. They tore it down, but they're rebuilding. So this is a cool building. Bobby Mackey is a country singer, which I don't like country music, but it was a really cool building. But it was back in the I guess the 20s and 30s during Prohibition and all that. So it's right on the edge of Newport, Kentucky. And that would be like a smaller Kentucky type version of maybe like a Chicago or Detroit. It was very mob heavy. There was a lot of illegal gambling and speakeasies and alcohol and things like that. And right on the outskirts of that, along the Licking River, there was this building, a bar, and it was at one point it was called the Latin Quarters, then it was the Primrose. I think it was the Primrose first, and it was like an entertainment nightclub type place. And then when the mob took it over, that was the Latin Quarters, and there was a lot of history there. And then that kind of went on. You should look it up. There's a lot of documentaries. There's some like Taps was there, Ghost Adventures were there, like a lot of the bigger name places were there back in the early 2000s. I mean, I went there when I was in high school. It was just like they had like the bull and all that. I never read the bull, but they had like the bull and everything. But there's a lot. I did a lot. I don't even know how many times I went there because I drove by it all the time. But that was a really cool place. There's some really cool places in Cincinnati and Ohio, and Kentucky. Of course, when we were in Florida, we went to St. Augustine a couple of times, and anywhere, any city we go to, South Carolina, North Carolina, any of those places, we'll find a place. Of course, there's a lot here in Indiana, ISS, and then Ashmore over in Illinois, Pine Lawn in Illinois. There's a lot really close to us. So we've hit most of those.
oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's cool. Um, so as far as like the history and stuff, how do you go about your research? Do you go like to the libraries and the town halls, or do you just
Well, I work at the library, so
Oh,
that's fun.
okay.
Yeah, so that's fun. The problem that I've run into, and I've been to the Historical Society a lot, and then some newspaper articles, because there is a pretty dark history of. Can I say whatever I want? Is this censored at
Yeah.
all?
No,
Okay.
nope.
Okay. Of missing and murdered women. There is a long history of it. Actually, several have disappeared right from this area, one a half mile away from the cemetery. And but just Greene County in general, I actually just reposted a TikTok where a girl is doing like a little true crime clips, and she's hit on Greene County. And you should, I had no idea any of this happened, but to answer the question, the history that I've found, it's been from the Historical Society, the library, the microfilm, old newspaper clippings, and things like that.
Okay. Do you have like I hate I don't know, I hate being invasive, I guess, but do you have any
No, it's
abilities
whatever. I'm sorry, what?
do you have abilities or anything that you can feel or like sense different things?
I mean, I don't. I'm hesitant to say yes because I think I just don't trust it. But I will trust my judgment over any piece of equipment out there.
Mhm.
So I guess maybe so. I think just growing up the way I did with an Appalachian Native American grandma telling me stories from when she was a kid and just growing up in that region, I just think you have something. I wouldn't call myself a psychic or a medium or anything like that. I just feel like I do sense things.
Okay, the only reason I ask is I was just curious if you picked up on any of the women or any of the history that happened, like just from being there as frequently as you are and living there.
I don't know if I picked up so much of it because I knew. So as soon as we moved in, I wasn't working right away. So as soon as I moved in, I started digging up the history. And then, like, within weeks of us living here, we found out there's a man that actually lives about 3 houses from the church, and he was a suspect in 4 murders. And he was convicted of killing his wife and dumping her body down a mine shaft. So, yeah, this happened
Oh
between
my God.
1994 and 1998. But so I learned all these things. So I don't know if that would influence any feelings that I would have about anything here. I do feel there's a strong female presence here. That's the one I feel like I connect the most with. There is a strong female presence that she's kind of timid. She it takes a lot to get her to come out. But I do feel like I connect with that a lot.
Okay. So, I'm hesitant to ask just because I like to go into investigations kind of on the colder side, but what's some stuff that does happen there?
So as soon as we moved in, like I said, we were in the basement and we would hear walking up here all the time, just walking. We would hear shuffling sounds, kind of like in the back right corner, both upstairs and downstairs. We would hear these shuffling movement sounds. We thought it was the cats, or we thought, there was a squirrel in here or something, and there was nothing. We would hear, then the whispers started. There used to be, we had the old original piano from the late 1800s here, but when it could no longer be tuned, they got a more modern, it was from the 70s, but it was here in existence until the church disbanded. One night I heard whispering and I heard footsteps and I came upstairs and I said, "Hello, I can hear you. Do you want to come out and do you want to communicate?" And just the last three, I don't play the piano, so I don't know what key it is, but like those real high pitched, like the ting, 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 like the three I heard that on the back piano. And I said, "I can hear you." And it was silent for like 2 weeks. Nothing happened. And I was like, "Oh no, I've scared them." So I made a point to keep talking to them and keep talking. And like whenever we do renovations or whenever we do anything, I always explain to them what we're doing, why we're doing it. Um, and they seem to have accepted us. And I've said, we can all coexist here. You don't have to leave. No one's going to hurt you. No one's going to make you leave, and you're safe here. Because I do feel like I did pick up like maybe fear, or I don't know if it was a timidness or if it was more of a fear of being heard or seen or something. So I just try to reassure them of that. Like you're safe here. You're not, no one's going to hurt you or make you leave. So in addition to that, like the footsteps and the shadows are crazy sometimes. My husband, so what you have to understand, he's a Marine. He never believed any of this. And I'd always tell him, even my old house, I told him, like, I think, I feel like there's things here. Oh no, I have to see it. I have to feel it. I have to know it. He never believed it, and he believes now. So that was one of the biggest validation pieces that I got, was for him, because I know he was so not against it, but he just needed that proof. It was going to take a lot to convince him that something was really here, or anywhere for that matter. He would go on investigations with me and he would be like, "Well, I don't know. It could have been this, or it could have been," he never really wanted to trust whatever kind of evidence you would find. He would always look for alternative explanations, which you want to do. But I think if you go on an investigation and you're there for one night, you really don't have that opportunity to do that. You can have like, so you can have some equipment go off and you can have, which to me, I'm like, okay, that's valid enough for me. But he would always try to find the alternative. So, but after, living here, one night we were downstairs and I had the doorbell cameras. They were off the chargers. They were on the counter charging. And that my phone pinged and said, someone's at the side door or whatever it says. And as soon as I grabbed my phone to look to see what it was, because I knew they were on the counter, I knew they shouldn't have been picking anything up. As soon as I grabbed it, we heard running, like heavy footsteps running from the front of the church all the way to the back of the church. And so much that he thought the guy I was telling you about that killed his wife, he always wants to come inside. He always wanted, if we have materials delivered, he's there. Let me help carry it in. He wants to come in, and we never let him come inside. So he thought and we'd see him like lurking around outside and just being creepy. And he thought he had got in because he maybe thought we weren't home or something. And he grabbed like this big mag light, the big heavy mag lights, and I think he grabbed a hammer and he ran up here, and there was no one here. Everything was locked up. There was nothing here. And I think that might have been the turning point for him and then he was like, well, I've heard those footsteps and yeah, I see the shadows and I've heard, and then he started hearing a little girl. And downstairs, he's heard a little girl call for mama. And he's heard that twice. And that's what I mean. They're very, and I try to tell people when they come, because it's not a very invasive, like some people have said they've gotten touched. I've never been touched. I don't think you're going to get touched. You're not going to have something fly in front of your face. Something's not going to pull your hair. You're not going to get scratched. I mean, none of that stuff. It's very subtle. It's a very subtle energy. And that's why I feel like it's more feminine, because it's more subtle, if that
Right.
makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I mean, this is going to sound like a really silly question. Was it anything besides a church? Like, or has it always been a
It's
church?
always been a church. Now, so the church, when the town was first established, it was established about a half mile away, back by the cemetery, which I'm so bummed that I don't have the cemetery, but I don't. So there's that. But once they put in the railroad, I mean, you can see it out the front door. Once the railroad came through and they realized like that was a big, um, oh, my words aren't coming to me, a transit place or a commodities exchange place, whatever. They used to use there's a creek that runs behind us too, and that runs off of one of the bigger rivers through Indiana. And so that was their main source of trade. But then when they put the railroad in, they moved the town. They actually established the town. There were like, houses. I don't know how much was there before they actually built everything here. But when they started putting the railroad in, they decided to settle the town over on this side. I do know there was a friendly Indian camp an eighth of a mile southwest of the church. So that's like back in that direction. I'm assuming there is a heavy Native American presence in the area. So I don't really get into that a whole lot just because of my background and my, personal history. I just leave that alone. I don't mess with that because I think that's a very sacred thing, and the grounds I think are very sacred, and I don't disturb any of that. So I really haven't dug into that much, but I do know from reports and from documentation from the Historical Society that there was they called it a friendly Indian camp. So they must have done, some trading and things with them. There was no fighting or anything between them. Um, so there could have been something with that too.
Okay. I mean, at least it was amicable. You don't often hear about that, unfortunately, when it comes to native ground and things like that with all that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, have you ever like seen or heard anything outside then? Like, is there like,
Well, I don't know how much you want to know since you're going to come here, but there is some dark. So I call it dark energy. I don't believe it's in the church. I've always felt like something wants to come inside, but it can't. And I'll just touch on that a little bit. back, so when the church was first founded, it was the Methodist Episcopalian Church. And I don't know how much of that history you know, but they split. First, they split to a north and a south region because of differing views on slavery. And then because of further disagreements in lifestyle choices, um, the Episcopalians and Methodists split completely. I think the Methodists are much more conservative than the Episcopalians. So, but at the time in 1869, when the church was founded, it was Methodist Episcopalian. So the documentation that I have from the Historical Society says, which is very surprising to me because I'm pagan. So
Okay.
this it surprised me to hear that there were pagans, atheists, and Christians in the area. And the whole town went together financially and physically and built the church. And it was used by all by everyone. So there were pagan and atheist um, meetings here. In addition to the Christians, it was reserved for Christians on Sundays. So there's a story that says there was a man that fell in love with one of the pagan women, and she wasn't interested in him at all. And he, didn't understand paganism, which I assume back as people don't understand it now. So I assume back in the 1800s they didn't understand it for sure. But he didn't understand it. But he thought, oh, if I'm a pagan, he thought it was a religious thing. So he thought, if I become pagan, then she'll be interested in me. So a dark energy took advantage of that, because he just opened himself up to what he believed must have been paganism. So this dark energy took advantage of that and took over. It wasn't a possession; it was more of an oppression type situation. And after months of him, this darkness taking over him and him doing terrible things to his family, to especially this woman and the town in general, the family came to the church and asked for help and said, we need help. There's something wrong with our son. He's not acting right. He's so out of character. He's very mean. He's aggressive. We're worried about him. So they did prayer sessions, which I'm assuming are kind of like what they would equivalent to maybe an exorcism. There's no documentation of any exorcisms taking place here. But the story from the Historical Society was that they did prayer sessions over this man. And after several prayer sessions, he got out from under this oppression that he was under. And when he found out all the horrible things that he had done, he felt so guilty, he went out in the woods and hung himself. So we don't know, there's no documentation from a church record of any of that happening, but we do know that the Episcopalian bishop visited here 4 times between 1889 and 1891. So we think there is something to that claim. There's some truth to it. But what happened was they got him out from under this oppression, but they didn't do anything to rid the area of that dark energy. So a lot of people believe that all these missing and murdered women, that goes all the way back to the late 1800s, early 1900s, all the way up till today. There's women missing today. They just randomly go missing. That it's part of this dark energy in the area. So a lot of times when you're investigating here, you will get, something that's trying to lure you outside. Come outside. People have actually got that. Come outside. We're outside. We'll talk to you outside. And we have investigated outside, and you can feel a definite energy shift when you go outside, especially when you investigate around the weirdo's house. We actually go down there and do that. So we stay on the street, but we do go kind of around the property, and you get some weird stuff.
Wow. Okay. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
And the fact that there's been so many missing women from that long ago up till today, I think it was, I mean, everything kind of had my interest, but that really caught my attention when you mentioned that it was so far back. Like I guess I shouldn't have assumed, but I figured it was probably like more modern times that women were going missing, not way back in the 1800s as well. So
Yeah.
that's very interesting. And it really kind of makes me wonder what is actually there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've never felt unsafe here, even with the weirdo down the street. course, we have two big dogs, and we're protected. We'll just say that. And we plus, I mean, physically protected, and the place is warded. Like he's not coming in here. Like he's there's no energy coming in here that doesn't need to be here. Um, but you do feel, and I've had multiple people. There's the railroad tracks, like I'd mentioned, and people have told me as soon as they cross those railroad tracks, they feel a shift in the energy. Like it's this whole I don't know what it is, but they feel, and I'm trying to think back the first time I saw the church because, like I said, we bought it and I didn't even see it, and I was so excited to see it. I don't think I paid attention to my energy at that time because I was so excited to get in and see it finally, um, and I think I'm just here so much now. I don't feel that shift really, but a lot of people the first time they're here, they tell me that it's like that. As soon as they cross the railroad tracks, they feel the shift.
Oh, do you, sorry, do you feel that the different, I guess I call them municipalities that were there helped keep that energy out once they dispersed it from, I mean, I guess that person or whatever that you say that you feel wants to come in?
I I don't, I think because it wasn't a very active church at the time, I think when that energy left him, and maybe it didn't actually leave him at the church. I mean, maybe, I don't know how those things really, I know that it takes, I've heard, I've never been part of it, but I've heard that it takes multiple attempts and, you have to be really strong. And, who knows, maybe it left him at his house. Maybe it left him in the church. I don't know. Is that what you're asking? Like,
I guess I more so mean like, do you think that there was so many differences? Like, there's obvious. I mean, you have the atheists that have their belief that there's absolutely just nothing. It seems I'm not
mhm,
really familiar so much with atheism, but like paganism is very. I'm familiar with that. I'm not pagan, but I've done a lot of my own research and all of that other stuff. And I have crystals all over the place. I know you can't see because of the background. So like, it's not that. Anyway, I'm familiar with paganism, and then
mhm,
obviously like you have the religious aspect of it, which is more of Christianity. I'm just
mhm.
wondering if you think that literally that's what keeps that negative out is just the being of what it was.
I think so. I think it is. Or maybe because it doesn't feel like there's something that it can attach to here.
Okay.
Maybe it wonders, there's a lot. I mean, just 2 years ago, a man 5 miles from here killed his wife and 14 or former partner. I don't know if they were really married and their 14-year-old son. And he has no, like, he doesn't know why. He just like snapped and did it. And so that kind of goes, I think it takes advantage where it can. And maybe it can't come into the church because of, like you said, the atheist doesn't believe in anything. Um, and, the pagans, they believe what they, that. And then, but I think it is the very strong, it was an active church up until 2020. Um,
Oh, okay.
yeah, so it was active. And then we were the third owners. So within like a 2 year time period, we were the third owners. Now, the first owners that bought it when the church first disbanded, they only owned it for a few months and they sold it to another couple. The couple were from out of state and they wanted to turn it into a wedding chapel. And I think they got in and they saw like there's a lot of work here. There was termite damage. There was, I mean, I could go on for days about the things we've had to do before we could actually start like building things. Um, but with it being, so I think we were probably the first ones that were here for a long time, or consistently when the church after the church disbanded.
Okay.
And I know the first thing I did, I came in and did a cleanse, warded it, and did because you don't. I mean, I used to do that anywhere, but um, so I think that's why it can't come inside.
Okay. Again, this is just my sheer curiosity, just kind of shooting off the hip here as I
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
Um, I just lost my train of thought. Well, I guess I'll go to a different question. I have no
I'm
idea
glad
where
you have
I'll.
questions because I would just be sitting here like, well, no.
I'm sorry. I've got a scatterbrain sometimes. Um, what was, oh, that was, I guess, what was the reason it disbanded, or is that unknown? Is it just
It
because of
was
COVID?
just, it's, yeah, it's a tiny, like when you see it, you'll see it's a tiny, tiny, tiny little town. And it's actually, so the address, the local people here still refer to it as Marco, but it's actually been incorporated into another tiny little town, Lyons. So the physical address is or the mailing address is Lyons, but it's people still refer to it as COVID. Oh my gosh, listen to me, my brain, Marco. But after COVID, they started the online church services,
Oh.
and there were only, I mean, maybe 15 people that were attending regularly anyway. So I think as the town is so small and as people kind of died off, new people never came in. And then um, after COVID, they just never really opened back up.
That makes sense. What's your favorite part of the church?
Oh my gosh, there's in what, in a spiritual aspect or a physical aspect?
Just anything. Both.
um, I I don't know. I when I saw it, like I said, it was between the church and the general store. And I just always felt drawn to the church. I just feel like there's a lot of really cool energy here that you can like I said, I've never felt afraid. I don't feel any negativity or things like that. Um, I just feel like it was where I needed to be. And I didn't know it was going to turn into this, but maybe something did. Maybe that was in the works all along and I just never realized it. Um, I had, we fully had planned on renovating it into a house and just living here and just kind of living our lives. And then it kind of morphed into this other thing. And we're not ruling out living here, but, it's kind of, like I said, we're just going to play that out. Um, the physical thing, all the stained glass windows are original from 1869. And there's also still the bell. The bell actually still works. So I really love that. So those are the physical things that I really like. But I think it's just a feeling of, it's just a cool place. I love, it's just a cool place.
Does the bell ever ring like on its own? Has it ever done that?
No, someone asked me that. Actually, I had a couple investigations this weekend, and someone actually asked that, and I said, I would jokingly say, "Well, it'd have to be pretty strong because you got to yank that rope pretty hard." It hasn't. It's never, not that I am aware of. I've never heard it ring on its own. So
I had to ask.
yeah, that would be a really cool trick. Maybe we can ask them to do that.
That would be really cool. That would be phenomenal.
Yeah.
Well, you said you've never been scared. So what do you, how do I word this? Has there been anything that's kind of like made the hair on the back of your neck stand up that you're like, oh, I didn't expect that?
There has. I mean, like I think the first time, I mean, you kind of always feel like you're seeing shadows kind of out of the corner and this and that. But I think when you actually see a full shadow walk, like not out of the corner of your eye, but like right there, that was a little alarming at first. The running, the real heavy footsteps. Oh, actually, there was. So there was I brought up Bobby Mackey's because after they tore the building down and they're rebuilding, but there are some items from there that I brought back here. So there's like some dirt. So there's supposed. So at one point it was a slaughterhouse because the river was right there, and they would butcher the animals, and there was a well, and everything would drain into the river, which is disgusting. They can't do that today, um, but at some point along the way, it was called a portal to hell, and it kind of got blown up Zach Bagans style. But so I do have some dirt from the well, and I have some bricks and some other items from there, and some wood from the actual original building. And but when I first brought it here, I didn't think much about it. I just had it put away and deciding what I was going to do with it at some later time. My husband, I said he was a truck driver, so he works odd, weird hours, and sometimes he gets home at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Sometimes he gets home at 11 o'clock at night. So he was on his way home, and I was making him a mixed drink. And as soon as I poured the whiskey into the shot glass to make the drink, I heard his voice say, "Hey." And it came from the direction of the stairs where he would have been coming down. And so much that the dogs like scooted across the floor and ran to meet him because they thought it was him too. And when I turned around and he wasn't there, that kind of was alarming because it was a man's voice and it sounded just like him. And that's happened twice. And I don't know, it happened after I brought the Bobby Mackey stuff here. I feel like the footsteps before were pretty light. Again, that feminine energy. They were pretty light way you would hear them, but it wasn't like stomping heavy, except for the one time when we heard the running. But now the footsteps are a little bit heavier. They feel to me like they're maybe a little more masculine. Um, and I feel like maybe I brought something with me with that stuff because it was that whiskey was the trigger of it. So the only time it's happened is when I was making him a drink. So it has to be, I don't know. I just felt like it had to be something to do with that. But it was his voice. Now it could have been the dogs. They heard something and ran, but I always say they thought it was him too, or at least one of them did, and then the other one just followed. But um, it sounded, I would swear that it was his voice. And when I looked and he wasn't there, and I looked at his location and he was still like 15 minutes away. So that was kind of alarming. That was to hear that voice so clear and so distinct, and it sounded like him and it wasn't him. So that kind of was like, what are you then? Because I knowing the history of things and the dark energy that is somewhere around here, that was a little scary. But even then, once I kind of laughed it off, like, okay, well, that was weird. That was something new. But I've never felt really afraid
Okay.
from
I mean,
it.
that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Do you think that like the the stream or the railroad tracks like carry the energy through? Like, do you get different things, you think?
So it's funny, given so I haven't even gotten to the history of the KKK in this area.
Oh,
That's huge around here. Or was. I still think there's still some, Billy Bobs that think they're still part of it or something. But the the creek that runs behind us is called the Black Creek. The river that I referenced is called the White River. Not that it matters black and white. It's just kind of an ironic little weird thing. But there have been several women who had gone missing that have turned up either in the White River or along the banks of the White River. So with the Black Creek running off of that, I do feel like there's probably some energy that has come off of that. Um, some people have talked about the railroad. No, it's not like, I mean, I guess people could like hop on a train and ride the trains or whatever. And maybe it did happen kind of back in the day. Now there's a lot of coal mines around here. So mostly it hauls coal, and that's usually what we see on it. But it's possible that maybe some people, wanderer, drifter type people, hopped a train, got off, you know, existed here for a while, and who knows what they did, and hopped on the train and went somewhere else. So,
it's interesting. I mean, it's a very unfortunate too. I could only imagine rolling up and seeing a person, a body, on a bank. That would have to be just terrible.
yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, it's up to you if you want to go into the history a little bit more. I mean, you've got kind of got me intrigued about this whole thing.
I mean, that's pretty much the what I know. You're talking about the KKK history. So,
Yeah,
so when
any
the
of it.
church was yeah, so it's when the church was built in 1860, it started in 1869. It was completed in 1871. While the church was being built, they actually used the train depot as a meeting place. It was a pretty big booming little town. There was a train depot, a big hotel. There were a couple bars, saloon, general store type things. There was a doctor that lived here with a doctor's office. There was a bank. just a little, like a typical little railroad town from the late 1800s. When there was an accident on the railroad one day, and they believed the man's name was George. He was not from here. He was from Virginia, but he was a railroad worker. And there was an accident, and they took him to the doctor's office, and he knew he was going to die. He was in pretty bad shape, and he was very religious, and he said, take me to the church. So they brought him to the church, and he died here later that evening. So that and the man that hung himself are the two. I always said one documented death, but I really wasn't counting the guy that hung himself because it wasn't in the church, but it was kind of like on the grounds. Um, but that was so a lot of teams have said they've made contact with George, that he's very nice, but he's sad. He's rumored to be buried up in the cemetery. So I imagine him being from Virginia, they couldn't really preserve his body to take him home back in that day. So he probably is a little sad that he's probably not fully at rest because he wasn't with his family and he wasn't buried with his family. So that's one of the things or one of the people that people believe may haunt here or exist here, however you want to word that. And then there was the pagan story or the oppression story. And then, the town just continued to grow until the 1920s when the KKK came in full force into Indiana. I know people that are my age, I'm 55, and my age, they remember being at the grocery store and them handing out flyers when they were kids, when they were with some of the older people said that they remember church services, the people, they would come in their robes and hand the minister envelopes full of money to preach this hate. So, in a way, they're being told by their politicians, they're being told by their religious leaders that that's the way they're supposed to believe. And, you know what you know at the time, and you don't know what you don't know. So, we know better now. So anybody that wants to be a part of that now I think better. It's just a hate that you have for people that you don't need to have. But anyways, it was very strong here. We do know that church members were members of the KKK and they had meetings here at the church. So that was another group that had meetings here. So I do feel like maybe sometimes there's some energy from that here, just there's just some hate, people like that, they just don't think like the rest of us. So there's energy here from that for sure. Again, though, I don't feel now, maybe if I was a minority, I would feel differently about feeling safe and not being scared here. I would probably have a whole different perspective, I think. Hopefully not, because I don't want that energy here. So, but anyway, so that continued up until, like I said, it was very active even in like the 70s and 80s. I think then it kind of went a little more underground because people were just kind of tired of that mentality and that kind of thinking. So I guess there's still some people in the area. They do call this area a sundown town, where a lot of bad things happen. It's rumored that they would ring the bell at sundown to let people know you need to get inside or you're fair game, basically, which is just I can't imagine having that fear of what's going to happen to me and not having the freedom to just exist and just not, of just because someone didn't like you. It's just, I just can't imagine living like that. But it was a big part of this area. And that is part of the missing. There are several, African American women that disappeared that they believe were victims of the KKK, that they did really bad things to. The guy I was telling you about, that we didn't know about him. We actually hired him because he does like handyman work, and we didn't know that he had killed his wife. And we hired him because there was all this concrete out in the front, and like a church. And we hired him to, like, he has like this, I don't know, backhoe equipment thing. So we hired him to chunk up all the concrete, and he was sort of telling us all these crazy stories about being in prison and being part of the KKK. And I'm like, oh my God, who did we make contact with? Like, what is going on? And um, he, I said, so I asked him, I said, well, why were you in prison? And he said, oh, I killed my wife. Like, it was just nothing. And where was I going with that? There was another part of that story with the KKK. Just, I guess, that he claimed to be a part of it, which I don't know, because I feel like that's not just a group that you leave once you get involved with. So I think a lot of it, I thought he was just like all talk. I didn't realize, but then I started digging up the history, and I found newspaper articles and stuff, and yeah, he really did what he said he did. So, um, he so when I asked him that, and he told me this crazy story that doesn't align with the official reports of what happened, but he was sentenced to 45 years. So for 4 years, this is awful. So for 4 years, he told everyone that she just ran off. She ran off with somebody. So she was missing for 4 years. And they always suspected him. They always knew it was him, but it took them that long to get enough evidence. They were going to implicate some family members, and he confessed to save some of his family that were going to be implicated. And he took a plea deal, so he was sentenced to 45 years. Oh, I need to plug this in. Sorry, I think my battery's starting to go dead. Hold on, can we just stop for a second? I'm so sorry. Sorry, my screen got a little dark. I was like, that was weird. But so he was sentenced to 45 years. 15 years were suspended. He served 15 years, and he's out on supervised probation until 2031. He's currently incarcerated because he keeps failing drug tests because he's on meth. Um, but yeah, I mean, it gets weirder. I forgot where I was going with that now. I forgot what we were talking. Oh, that's just the general history. So when he was telling me about this, about him killing his wife, he goes, "Yeah," and then they tried to pin those other ladies on me. So I'm like, "What other ladies?" So I start digging into that. So there was a 79-year-old lady that disappeared from the cemetery a half mile away. She's never been recovered. She's never been found. And then there were two other ladies. One lived about 6 miles from here, south. Her body was found. She disappeared. Her body was found about 18 miles from here, north, um, near a creek that feeds into this creek that runs behind us. And the other lady lived within miles of where the first lady body, where her body was found. Her body was found within a mile of where the other lady lived. So there's like this loop of area that people believe may have been like his hunting ground.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Um, and then that's just the four that I know are tied directly to him. Well, one for sure that I know, but the three were suspected of being tied to him. Um, he's One day he said he wanted to know if we had a gun. He said he had to shoot his dog, which is because the dog had mold poisoning, he said. And he was telling my husband that his basement has like 4 feet of water and his house is full of mold, and now his dog is sick and he has to put it down. And we're like, well, you can take it to a vet. There's more humane ways to do this. And no, you can't have a gun because, well, you can't because you're who you are. But my husband said when you see it, you'll know that his house looks like a junkyard. Like he owns the house, and then like across the street, he has like a big barn, and that whole property is just covered in junk. It looks like a junkyard. I don't know what he does with it. He does like handyman work, so he brings stuff home, and he just sits there. But my husband said, "Why don't you take all this junk you've got and put it in your basement and fill it in with concrete?" And my dogs are going crazy. Can you hear them?
Mhm.
Okay. And fill it in with concrete, and that'll take care of your water. And then, then you can clean your mold up. And he goes, oh no, I'm going to make a dungeon and put a woman down there. I mean, I don't know if he thought he was funny or if that's just the way he thought, but somebody with his background shouldn't be saying things like that. So that week we actually went that way. At the time we didn't have dogs. And that week we went and we got our pit. And he's like the sweetest dog. He looks ferocious. And he is protection trained, but he's very sweet until he's not. But he's the most mild mannered dog. But when he sees him, he gets the hair raises on the back of his neck, all the way down the ridge. He gets that real low growl. And dogs can sense that. And he
Oh, yeah.
knows he's like a very bad guy. Um, so yeah, that's his story. Oh, and then the other thing, I keep forgetting this when I tell the history and kind of get to his side of it. He has no teeth, which you would think is typical with meth, but apparently he claims he's like some karate person or something, and then he does tournaments. And yeah, I know it's funny, right? And but he has no teeth, and he said he pulled all of his teeth. So this is even before he went to prison. That he pulled all of his teeth because he didn't want to be in a tournament and have to like bite through his lip. Now, listen, my son played football from the time he was 5 into college. He's a brown belt in karate. He's done tournaments. He does MMA training. He's never once thought about pulling his teeth, ever. I think he was a biter. I think he was a biter, and I think he left marks on these women, and he didn't want them to be matched up. And what's funny is I just did it again. I don't know if you saw, but it took me a while to realize it, but whenever I tell that story, I always say he was a biter. I feel like there's bite marks on one of those women somewhere on their shoulder because it's just instinct. I just say he was a biter, and I don't know why. Why didn't I say he was a biter or he was, But
Yeah,
I always do that, and I just feel like that's just some kind of weird. He was a biter, and who pulls all their teeth? No one. No one pulls their teeth.
well, not anybody sane, no.
Right. So, I mean,
Oh,
there's just all kinds of weird stuff like that. I mean, I could go on for a while about him, but I won't because it's just weird stuff.
that just blows my mind.
Yeah. And so like, if you look straight out from the church, there's like a little like decorative type wishing well. It's maybe 100 yards away, and there's a vacant lot there. And that's where he lived when he killed his wife. They lived in a mobile home there. He lives in a house now. But when she was missing for those 4 years that she was missing, her family went to psychics. I mean, they did everything they could to try to find her. And 2 psychics told the family, look in the well. And I don't think she's down there, but I think that's where he killed her. And I think they're picking up that well. So we've actually, because it's vacant and it's at the end of the street, so we've investigated down there, and you get some weird stuff down there. We've actually been over by his property where he lives today, over in that junkyard area, and we've investigated around there on the street. We stay on the street, but you get some weird stuff there too. My husband's convinced that there's bodies buried over there. He is convinced.
I mean, that was one of the things I was going to ask you is if the police ever thought about sifting through like the soil and stuff, because I'm sure they'd find stuff.
Yeah. Oh, one night, I have to go on for days again. We have a little fire pit out in the back, and it was about midnight, and we were out there. We just had our little fire, and we're sitting there, and all of a sudden we hear this boom, and it shook the ground. It like shook the ground. So we came out, we walked out to the front, and we looked down, and there's a fire. I mean, it is humongous. It's probably 30 feet in diameter and as tall. I mean, it was this huge fire. And it's over by his barn, his junkyard. And so we walked down there. I thought, did something happen? Like, did he blow something up? Is he on fire? And like, what's going on? So we walked down there, and there's this huge fire, and he's on his little backhoe skid thing, leveling off the other neighbor's property at midnight. He's like cutting down trees and stuff. And we were standing right in the street, and he drove that thing past us like 3 times, didn't stop, didn't like mind your own business, nothing. So my husband will speak to him just enough to keep tabs kind of on him. to know what's going on. And but my husband said, "What was that fire? What was that big explosion down here?" And he goes, "Oh, I had to burn a car." And we're like, "What?" And he goes, "Yeah, I had to burn a car." And he goes, "I burn stuff at night so nobody sees the smoke and calls the fire department." So I mean, what's in that? What was in that car? So one night we were down there, we were investigating on the street, and I was telling the story to this group that was here. And as soon as I pointed to where the fire was, the ovulus said, "We are buried there." And
Oh,
and
that's
then
goosebumps.
so we were like, "Did you guys hear that? Did you hear that?" And then we heard a male voice say it either said "get back" or "get out." We don't know what it was. It was "get back" or "get out," one of those two. And I was like, "Oh my God, he's not in jail. He's here. He's here." So we like ran back to the church. And that night was so weird. Like the energy was just, it was off. It was one of those really odd energy nights. And so we ran back into the church, and we're like, "Did that really happen? What was that?" So we're kind of looking out and seeing like, did anyone come out? So about a half hour later, we got in the car and drove down there. It's not far, but we wanted to be enclosed. And we sat right where we were before, and we had the obelisk going and stuff. And if he was there, he would have came out like, "What are you guys doing here?" So I don't know what that voice was. And then I found out later from the neighbor that he is still in jail. So I don't know what that voice was. I don't know if something was warning us, if something either positive warning us or something negative saying mind your own business. I don't know what it was, but we all heard, there was four of us, and we all heard that voice say "get out" or "get back." Yeah.
I mean, is this guy older or is he?
He's like 63, 64, maybe.
Oh, geez. I think that kind of makes it worse that he's, I mean, that maybe sounds awful that he's that
Right.
young.
But you expect, right, right. So then, like, we also go up to the cemetery, and it's as long as you're respectful and you're out there making noise and being disrespectful to, the graves and stuff. No one's ever said anything to us. But on the way, one night we kept getting water and bridge. So you cross over the little bridge that goes over the creek that runs behind us. And we kept getting that bridge, water, water, this and that. So we got on so around the bridge is pretty interesting too. You get a lot of weird stuff on the bridge. And so one night we were there. No, if you see five cars out here, it's a busy week. Like there's just no cars out here. And when you see, you'll understand. But we go around the corner. You kind of go around the corner, and the bridge is there. And there was a car. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. There was a car. There were two men. One man had the trunk open and was digging around in the trunk, and the other guy was in the driver's seat. So we're like, we just kept on going, like we're not stopping. We just act like it's it's perfectly normal to have your trunk open at 2 o'clock in the morning on a bridge and out in the middle of nowhere. It just weird stuff happens here. Weird stuff happens here is all I can say. It's like a beacon for weird. It really is.
I guess.
Yeah.
Holy cow. I mean, you posted that there's some dark history, but for some reason I never expected any of that. Like I thought maybe like seances or something like that. But
No.
holy cow.
Yeah, it's a there is a really and I didn't know. Like I said, I've never been here. I didn't even know there was a Greene County in Indiana. But if you do some research on that, you will see there's a lot of, and it seems to have gone back for years and years and decades. There's just actually there was what was the radio guy, something Harvey. Anyways, someone said that they actually heard on his radio program that he has heard that if you want to get rid of a body, take it to Greene County. So I don't know what that, like I said, I'm not from here. I don't know. But it's like a kind of a known thing around here. And like the girl on TikTok I was telling you about, I'll send you a link. If you go to one of her, they're just quick little like 2-minute little clips. Um, if you read some of the comments from people that live in this area, it'll make you get goosebumps. Like they validate all of this stuff. They tell you like, oh yeah, people disappear around here all the time, and nobody really says anything. So I don't know. Am I getting myself into a mess by talking about it, being the outsider? But yeah, it's it's kind of like a known thing around here. Like this, like just stuff happens, and just people just going about their business. Even like the weirdo that lives down the street, I've said to our neighbors and stuff like, aren't you guys afraid? Like there's an older lady that lives next door, and she's her husband passed away a few years ago, and he was over there working on her porch one day. And when you see that house, you'll understand too. We thought it was an abandoned house, but someone does live there. But she's an older lady. She doesn't, she just it's just kind of fallen into extreme disrepair. But I said to her one day, I said, "Aren't you a little nervous having him coming into your house and stuff?" And she's like, "Oh, that's just." And she says his name like every so like that's everyone's comment about him is, "Oh, he's just a little odd, but he's not dangerous." I'm like, he is dangerous. Like he's proven that he's dangerous. So, but everyone, like people around here will hire him to do. We hired him. We didn't know. We won't hire him again. But he always wants to come inside. He always wants to come inside. We will have materials delivered, and he's like, lurking around. You want me to help you bring that in? Like these big boards. I'm like, I will break my back bringing every board in before I let you come inside. But like he always wants to come inside the church. And like I said, we've caught him kind of lurking around before too. And but I had a team here, and one of the ladies used to be a corrections officer, and I had totally forgotten about this, but I was telling her about him, and she says, "Do you think he has something here that he wants to retrieve?" And I hadn't thought about it, but that dirt crawl space that I was telling you about earlier, when my husband was under there looking at the floor, because he had to reinforce like all these floors, he found a woman's shoe, like an old fashioned type woman's shoe. And I just said, put it back, just put it back, don't disturb it, because there's different beliefs on people leaving shoes, there's different protection things and stuff. So I said, just put it back, don't disturb it. But then when she said that, when she says, do you think he has something here that he wants to retrieve? I remembered that shoe. I had kind of forgotten about it. And I remembered that shoe. So now we brought the shoe out, and it's over in that case, and people will, put their equipment and stuff around it. And I had a psychic medium here. Her and her fiance came a couple weeks ago, and I was telling her. So we found. I should take you over there and show you. But I found when my husband was up in the bell tower, the whole ceiling was crumbling down when we bought it. It's all plaster. You can see around it's all plaster. It was just crumbling down. And so he had to get up there and reinforce that floor and put in new drywall and stuff to keep all that, tear all that out. That was one of the first things he did. Well, there's like a little, it's not an official doorway, but there's like the walkway between the bell tower into the attic over the church. He found this little, I'll just, wonder if I can walk you over there and show it to you. Because you have to see it. See this. So. You see the doll?
Oh, okay, yeah.
So the male doll was up in the attic area. Mm-hmm. The female friend of mine found him a mate, but there's the shoe. That was in the crawl space. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know if that's something he left here, because they told us that the church used to never be locked. That it was nothing to come in and see people sleeping on pews, just coming in from the cold or the heat, whatever it may be. There was nothing to. They never locked the church up. It was open to the community, and it was for everyone to use, and people had free reign to it. So I don't know if he buried something here. He grew up around here. He knows the area. I don't know.
That's kind of creepy.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people believe that the doll may have been used by the KKK in some type of ritual type something, some symbolism from that. I don't know. I don't feel anything negative from it. I don't, some people won't even touch it, but I've never felt anything bad from it. So I don't
Hmm.
know. I don't know.
I think I might know who that medium was too. I won't say her name just out of respect for her, but I
Oh,
really enjoy her energy. So if it's who I'm thinking of, she's
yeah.
awesome.
Did they just do the fundraiser?
Maybe, no, I don't know.
Oh,
Maybe.
okay. But well, I was telling her about the doll and I opened the cabinet. I used to leave that stuff sitting out, but now that more people are coming in, I keep it locked up now. But I opened the cabinet and I went to get the doll out and she went right for the shoe. And she was like, she just like honed in on that shoe. And she kept saying the lady was, she didn't have a lot, but she was very proud of what she had. And she just kept saying, my shoe, my shoe. She was worried that she was going to take her shoe. So she told her, your shoe is going to stay here. We're going to keep your shoe. And so there's, which also makes me wonder, um, one of the ladies that disappeared and was found along the banks of the Richland Creek, which runs into this one, she was handicapped, mentally handicapped. So she had a very low IQ. Um, and then the other lady, the one that was found by the Green Sullivan Forest, she was an older lady and she couldn't walk. She walked with a walker. She couldn't go, 10, she barely go to the bathroom without getting, without having to stop. Um, so she didn't just wander off. But that, and then the lady that disappeared from the cemetery, she was 79. So that kind of makes me wonder if that may have been one of their shoes. Now the one lady that was handicapped that was 33, the reason I think it, I wonder if it may have been hers because she was so protective of that shoe, like a child, like that's mine, that's mine, that's mine. So I don't know. I don't know who. It could be nothing. It could be that it was just some random shoe somebody threw in there and thought it would be funny. I don't know. But she really picked up a lot of energy from it. So
Yeah, yeah, I mean, there's so many questions with stuff like this, and I wish we
yeah.
had more answers. Just
Yeah.
in general, I mean, that would be a really cool story to have an answer to, but I
Yeah.
mean, the unfortunate story, but cool. But
Right. Well, yeah, you want answers and you want answers for the people because maybe that's why they're not at peace. Maybe that's why they're not at rest. I mean, other than what happened to them, but yeah.
yeah, well, now I'm gonna have to ask if that was her because now I'm curious.
Okay.
But well, I'll ask her separately, like off camera, but if it
Okay.
was her that found it. But I know that she was there not too long ago. She
Oh,
posted it, so but
yeah.
anyways, well,
Yeah.
you are very knowledgeable, obviously, I mean, you own the property, but the history of the town and stuff just fascinates me. So I think this might be one of the very first investigations that I do my own research on,
Yeah.
just because it's so encapsulating of like everything. Like there's just so
Yeah.
much that in that area and stuff that it's definitely caught my interest.
Yeah. It is. There really, I do believe there's something to that story of the dark energy. I mean, you live in places where bad things happen. You live in bigger cities and there's gangs and there's drugs and there's, or maybe there's a random person that goes crazy and kills his wife or whatever, but, or just a heat of the moment or whatever that claim is, a crime of passion or whatever it's called. But to have so much happen in this area and have the local people around here just say, "Oh yeah, that's Greene County," like it's nothing. It's strange. It's very strange. I do believe that there is some darkness around here that I just can't imagine there would be so many missing women and so many bad things that happen to women in this area without there being some type of influence somewhere.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like you said, that the fact that everybody just normalizes it is weird.
Yes.
I mean, I kind of mentioned I work in a big city, and at work I've dealt with more awful things than I've ever anticipated dealing with in my life.
Hmm.
Um, so but it's not normalized. So you kind of hit the nail on the head with that. That you have areas that are always going to be kind of like worse off than others and stuff. I'm just so fascinated now, and I've got so many more questions than I I think I originally
Yeah,
started
I
with.
mean it's never ending. And the problem that I've had, it's such a small place, and like you said, people do not make it a big deal. There's not a lot of documentation. A lot of, I mean, of course, the things that have, the missing women and the deceased women and those things that are documented, but we've I've searched and searched, and I work at the library, so I have access to everything. And it's just, or you'll see like a small clip, but you don't see the full story. There's never really like, oh, this happened, and then there's nothing else. Like, doesn't anyone want to know what's going on here? And or like around here where they're like, oh, that's he's just an odd guy. Has no one ever thought about digging up his property or like digging around, like you said, bring in like cadaver dogs or something? Like, there's a lot of missing women. So does no one care? Does no one want to find these women? Or it's just odd.
Very odd. And like I mentioned, his age earlier really kind of throws me off because he's young enough to keep doing it or to be doing it continuously still. I mean, obviously, you said he's incarcerated, but I mean, there's factors that probably prevent him from going after young women, but older, frail women, like you said, your
Yeah.
neighbor there, that I don't know, those are just the things that are kind of running through my mind now.
Mm-hmm. Well, he told me the story. I like this. I've only actually had one conversation with him, and that was the time that we hired him, and when he was telling me about him killing his wife. But he was just nonstop talking, and he told me that his mother passed away when he was a year old, and he's one of 10 kids, and his older sister raised him. Well, he does not like women. He does not like bigger women. Um, but because his dad, he said back in those days, if the dad didn't remarry, if there was not a mother in the home, the state would take the kids and just put them wherever they put them. So his dad kind of entered into like an arrangement with this woman. She needed a home and he needed a wife. So he married this woman, and he claims that she was very abusive and was very mean, and he don't like big women because that reminds him of his stepmom, and he doesn't like older women, he doesn't like bigger women, which I'm like, dude, everyone has trauma. Like, I'm an 80s kid. Like, talk about, the whole Gen X thing. Come on now. But I don't go killing people. I don't go pushing that out onto everyone else. Like, like you grow up and you don't let that define you as an adult. Like, a lot of people have had a lot of bad things happen to them and they don't do those things. But his mentality toward women, he won't look you in the eye. He will not, he'll look around and look around, he'll look down, he won't look me in the eye. The one time I had a conversation with him, but you can just tell he has zero respect for women and he doesn't like women. um so the fact that, I mean, his wife was one issue. The story about her, she was trying to leave him, and I think that's why he killed her. But the other two, the older women, that makes sense that he would target older women, because he doesn't like women in general, or he doesn't respect women in general. But the fact that there's a lot of older women in this area, like you said, a lot of times when there's maybe a serial killer or something, they have their targets and they have their types. And usually it's not older women. I mean, I guess some are, but it's just, I don't know. It's odd to me that after he said that, something stuck with me about the older women disappearing, and just hearing the way he talked about this lady that his dad married, almost like it was an excuse for his bad behavior or something. It was just odd. I don't know. He's just a creep. He's just a total creep.
It sounds like it.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm
And I don't know. I mean, is that because he grew up here? Is there, if this energy is still in the area, did it latch on to him? Does it go to other people? Is there this influence, or did it put him on a path to something that he got deep into, and that was just his, what he's turned into? or is there something still maybe attached to him or something? I don't
Yeah.
know.
I mean, that was kind of where my thoughts were going towards at one point when you said, that there was that, I guess exorcism is a word I'll use, but it wasn't really that prayer
Hmm.
time that expelled it, but maybe it did settle into something else, or maybe it's I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of unanswered questions about that, and
Oh yeah.
all the all the well, and it's funny because so there's that suspected serial killer, but then in Linton, which is like 10 miles from here, it's the next little big city. Um, there was a convicted serial killer. He was a nurse. He lived in Linton, and he was a nurse, and he murdered like over 100 people at the hospital he worked at. He like put, I don't know what the medication was, something in their IVs. He was only convicted of killing 7, but when they went through his house, they actually found the vials of the hydrochloride or something chloride. I don't know what it was, but he would instead of disposing of them at the hospital, he took them home. They found like hundreds of these little vials of this medication that he had used to kill these people. So, I mean,
Gosh.
it's one thing to have one serial killer in town, but to have a possible second, like within miles of each other, it's odd. But that was Orville Lee Majors is his name, and there's a lot of documentation on him. There's a lot of news reports. There's a documentary on, I think it might be on Netflix on one of those murder shows or whatever. But yeah, there's a lot on that. So I would love for someone to do like a whole deep dive documentary of Greene County of all the weirdness, but I don't know where you would find the documentation. That's the problem, is there's not a lot of documentation, accurate or factual documentation. A lot of it is rumor and word of mouth and people that have lived here their whole lives. And um, but to have like an actual, I don't know if you could actually do a documentary, a factual, to with facts to back it up. Yeah, there's a lot of speculation. There's a lot of facts of things happening, but I don't know how far you can carry that. So
It'd be interesting, even if somebody just did it on the theories and things of like the townspeople. 'Cause, I mean, there's definitely been things out there that have been created from that too. But
yeah, yeah, yeah.
you
So are
also
you
said there's
ready to come investigate?
I am like now I'm like really actually like I wish I could go tomorrow
Yeah.
because now I'm just gonna have to just I think I'm gonna have to deep dive before I head out there. And like I said, that's normally not like me, but I have so
Yeah.
many questions now that I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
maybe I'll start writing down some questions and see if I can get some answers.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah, it'd be interesting to see what you turn up. Because
Yeah.
there's a lot of stuff. There's got to be more stuff. I mean, we've only lived here. We bought it in 2023, so we've only been here a little over 2 years. Um, so I'm sure there's so much more that I don't even know. These are just things I was able to find, and that was hours at the historical society, and then even then, a lot of it was the ladies that worked there, or they would direct me to this other person, and getting people to talk to you because I'm some just weirdo outsider that's interested in things that they probably don't want to talk about or they don't want out in the open so much. So, but I definitely feel like there's something here that there's something here.
Huh. Yeah. Sounds it's so intriguing though. And now I just like I said, I really wish I could go tomorrow.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Well, I sincerely appreciate you talking to me. This has been a lot of fun and very insightful.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. I'm probably like digging myself into a hole here. I mean, because like I said, I am the outsider and I'm like spilling all these little secrets about the town, and people will like it or they won't. I don't really care. It's true. I mean, there's nothing that I've said that has not been. I mean, there's some things that I can't I don't have documentation, but it's things that have been told and passed along, like the story of the man and the pagan woman. And of course, there's no documentation of that happening, but there's documentation that the Episcopalian bishop visited. So, so I could see where people would not want, but there's probably a lot more that I don't know that some other locals would be more than willing to talk about too. I just have to get them to open up a little bit more and not, there's a couple of people that live around here that you can tell they're just, they, I wouldn't use their stories because I feel like maybe they're stretching it a little bit, or they're wanting it to sound more extreme than it is, or they just want their 15 minutes or whatever, to be part of the story or something. But there's a lot that I do wish there were better written documents of things, or more elaborate, instead of just like little clips of this happened or that happened, and no additional information. And I think that's where a lot of the speculation comes from. But I do think that there's enough things that are documented to validate that speculation, that kind of pushes it a little more than speculative to more factual. So
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I guess I do have one more question. Do you guys have your I know you said it's a small town. Do you have your own police department, or is it a county, like
it's
sheriff's?
It's a county. But they did actually, so the little town that kind of incorporated Marco into it, Lyons is the town. They just appointed a town marshal. So we do have that now. I have actually had the police out here a couple of times. Our cameras, we have cameras everywhere. And there was a guy that was outside lurking around like at 10 o'clock at night. And our neighbors, they kind of keep an eye on things too. And I had already, so there's some other people that live kind of up on the road that are a little sketchy. And when we moved from here, everyone of course knew we were here, and then probably knew when we were not. But shortly after we'd bought the other house and kind of moved from here, I saw our cameras picked up this guy kind of lurking around. So I immediately called the police because I was like, I thought it was the weirdo people up on the highway that are known to steal things. And they were here within a matter of minutes. And then there's another, I have to tell you this in first, there's another, I could go on for, when I say a beacon for weird, I had a very odd encounter with a lady that was in a schizophrenic episode. She was having something was going on. And my sister, who's a nurse practitioner, I was texting her because I'm like, I don't know what to do with this lady. Like, this lady's here and I don't know what to do. And she wasn't violent. She wasn't aggressive. She was very sweet. But my sister's like, she's going to snap. You got to get her out of there. So she was here for like 3 hours. It's a long story. But yeah, it was beacon for weird. I'm telling you. There's no other way this lady could have found me. But my sister got so freaked out, she called the police and said, there's a stranger there and I'm afraid for my sister. I'm afraid something's going to happen. So they came, and it was uneventful. Nothing happened. But and then when the guy was lurking around, I kind of told him. And then our neighbors, when they came, they asked him, like, what are you doing here? And he said, oh, well, some friends of mine rented this place out, and I just came by to check it out beforehand or something. And so they told me that, and I was like, oh, well, so they know I'm doing these investigations and stuff here. So they kind of keep an eye on things. So they can get here rather quickly when they need to. So that was where I was going with that when you ask about the police. But yeah, do you have time? Do you want to hear this other story?
Oh, yeah, no, yeah, I'm fine.
So this lady, we were shopping around for new insurance. I was here by myself. It was like Sunday afternoon. And this lady pulls up. The dogs start going crazy. And I look out. She looked completely normal. She had a couple notebooks in her hand. So I thought, oh, this is the insurance lady. So I go out, and she's like, oh, this church is fascinating, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, well, come. I'm thinking to see it because she's got notebooks and she's looking at the church. So I said, oh, well, come on in, look what we're doing. So I invited her in. So I couldn't, she wasn't trespassing. I invited her in. And so she comes in and she tells me how they renovated her first house. They total gutted it. And I'll try to make this a quick story. But so she comes in and all of a sudden we're sitting here and the bell tower area is right back over here. And she does this weird contorts her body all up and she's going, and she's pointing to the bell tower. And I'm like, okay, this isn't the insurance lady. Like, what is going on? So I'm just sitting there looking at her like, what do I do? So she starts doing this, like she wants her notebook, she wants to write something. So she writes down, I still have it, I'll show you when you get here. She writes down, they don't want me to talk, but she keeps just, and I'm like, at first I thought she was having a stroke. I didn't know what was going on. And so I'm like, who doesn't want you to talk? And she just keeps pointing to the bell tower. So then she comes out of it and she's like, they do that sometimes when they don't want me to talk. And I was picking up something in the bell tower. So then I'm like, what company are you with? Like, yeah, because then she's not the insurance lady. So then she goes. It's a long story, but she goes on and she had these moments of clarity, and she seemed somewhat normal. And then she would break off into this something else. I don't even know what it was, but she shows me. So this is Marco. She shows. So I said, "Why are you here?" Because she's not the insurance lady. How did you find me? Why are you here? She pulls up her pants leg. She has a cross and Marco tattooed on her leg. Her son's name is Marco, and she's in the middle of a divorce. And her spirit guide told her if she found a church in Marco, we would help her get her son back. And I'm thinking, what the hell? Like, when you come out here, you'll see people get lost using GPS out here. She had a paper map. She pulls it out of her bag. She had a paper map with Marco circled on it. She found us with a paper map. And so I'm thinking, this lady's trying to scam me. Something's not right. But she shows me, she shows me her passport. She has a global entry card, which you have to go through a whole process to get. She had a black MX. Like, the chick had money. And she's telling me she's writing a book and she's going to put the church in it and she's going to give me money to renovate the church. And I mean, you cannot make up this weirdness. Like, it was so odd. So she's telling me, so can you help me? Can you help me? And I don't want to set this lady off. And I'm like, well, we'll get you some help. So I'm texting my friend and I'm like, you got to get over here. Like, the 5 people I know in this town, this girl lives in Bloomington, which is like 45 minutes away. And I'm like, you got to get over here. I don't know what to do. So she comes, I'm like, I've had somebody come in to help you. So it goes into this total weird stuff. So she 1 minute, she starts ugly crying, breaking down, ugly crying. I'm tears full on, slob, everything. So I'm like, okay. So I put the dogs away because I thought she was the insurance lady. So I'm like, I'm gonna get you some water. I'm gonna let the dogs up. Of course, my pit, he's like standing between me and her because he's a little cautious of her. He's picking up something. The other one, he's like some random dog that showed up here and we just kept him. And he's really cool though. He has these really unique golden eyes. He's solid black. He's got a little bit of white on him, but he's black and he looks like he's looking into your soul. Like he's very intense. So he's over and he's like, because she's like, oh, and she's petting all over him. So he's eating it up. He's licking her tears and stuff. And she takes this dog. I'm not even lying. She takes this dog in her hands and she says, Daddy, is that you, Daddy? She thought my dog was her dead dad. And of course, he's like, oh, attention, this is great. So he's all over her. But she was so I think what happened, she's telling me how her dad died in like last July. This was like last September. I don't know when it was, but the previous July of whenever she was here. She told me her dad died. Well, they had a pretty strained relationship prior to that, and they had kind of had a makeup kind of thing before he died. And I think when he died, it just sent her. She just had a break. She had some type of a mental break. She had been in 2 different mental hospitals. She had been on a 40-day journey guided by her spirit guide. She had been out to the desert. She had been to North Carolina. She'd been to Tennessee. And now she was here. And and so then there's a fly flying around. I shouldn't even make fun of her. I'm not making fun of her. It was awful. She was in a very distraught state. And I think, and with paranormal, there is like that fine line between, is there something spiritual or is there something just somebody's whack? And so I do think the fact that she found us, and and we're Marco, and I mean, she showed me I've got a picture of the tattoo. Um, I do think someone sent her here to maybe for help or something. She'd been arrested in Tennessee. She had been run off from like everywhere she had been because people she presents initially she presents as normal, and then she goes whack. And I think then she had been to a church earlier that day, and at first they were very welcoming, and it's like maybe 15 miles from here, the church, and they were very welcoming. And then she showed her crazy, and they made her leave. And so then she ended up here, but she was asking them when she went there. There's a lot of Amish people there, so I'm sure they, she was saying, I need to find a church in Marco, and she thought maybe that was it. And then they helped her. So that I guess she didn't completely find us by paper map, because they did help her find Marco. Um, but anyway, I, I struggle with it because I know she was in a psychotic break. I know she was having an episode, but I do feel like there was something there too. I do feel like I don't know. I feel like a lot of things that she said could be a spiritual type thing, but I feel like a lot of things she's like, there was a fly flying around, and she says, Jovan, stop following me, Jovan. She thought it was her husband stalking her, and a fly. And then my friend gets here. I'm texting her, and my friend gets here, and she kept saying, tell her to bring coffee, tell her to bring coffee. So I said, I'm going to go make coffee. So I go downstairs and I get coffee. I was making coffee, and I hear all this commotion up here. And I thought, oh my gosh, she's killing Melinda. Like and she's yelling. So I run back up here, and she's pointing in the back corner, and she's like, Father Declan, you can't exercise me, Father Declan. So like she would have these, and then she would be completely normal again, talking about vacationing and St. Mark's, and this and that. And but she said she was trying to recruit us. She wanted us to kidnap her husband and bring him here and exercise him so that her life would go back to normal. She said, if we can get him here and get his demons out, my life will be normal again. And so I feel so bad for her, because her reality is so, she really was having a problem. But I'm not mental health. I didn't know what to do. So my sister, I initially I texted my sister because she has some training in that. She's a nurse practitioner for 30 years. And she's like, get her out of there, get her out of there. And I'm like, I can't just like get her out of here. Like, so she eventually, she called the police, and um, she, I was outside, and she kept wanting to go downstairs, and we wouldn't let her go downstairs. There's only one way in and one way out. I'm not getting trapped down there with you. I'm not going to do that. So when she went down the steps, she saw the police out there. She saw me talking to the police, and she comes out and she says, did you call the police on me? And I was like, no, I didn't call, which I did not call. I didn't lie to her. And the cop, he was quick. She was in a rental car, and it had Florida tags on it. And he said, oh, no, I was just making my rounds, and I saw the Florida plates, and I was just asking her who was visiting from Florida. So he was really good. Like, he just played it off completely. And, they talked for a while, but I kept telling the cop, I'm like, she needs to be in a hospital. She wants to kidnap her husband. Like, she needs to be in a hospital. And he said, they'll just let her go if she's not a threat to anyone. And I said, she's a threat to her husband. Like, and they said, they'll just let her go. So he talked to her, ran her tags or ran her license and everything, and kind of waited around and sent her on her way. And I feel like I'm going to see her again, though. I really do. I feel like I'm going to see her again. But what are the odds of some kind of weird stuff like that happening? I'm telling you, when I say it's a beacon for weird here, it really is a beacon for weird.
Talk about weird. Oh, I don't know how much I want to, not that my mother's schizophrenic.
Okay.
So I 120,000% understand where you're coming from, and it is like night and day.
Yeah.
And it's,
And she was not on any meds, so she was in full on break mode.
oh yeah, and they can mask I call them they like they're not human, and that sounds horrible, but they can mask extremely well. Like there
Yeah.
was people that thought that I was the crazy one because I was saying that my mother was
Yes.
insane. And I'm
Yes.
like, no, like she can only pretend so long. Like once you spend more time with her, then you like. So I understand, and unfortunately, with people like that, there isn't anything they can do. And I eventually it does come to a head, and something will happen, and they will be away. Which, unfortunately, I have some
Yeah.
knowledge of that also. But it's tough to deal with those people because you really never know what they're gonna think or what they're gonna do, and they can snap at this like just
And that's
instantaneously.
what my sister was afraid of. She says, if you ask her to leave, she's going to freak out. And that's why she wanted. And I said, well, I've got somebody on the way. And my sister's 4 hours away. It's like she could come over. And that's why she called the police. And what I didn't know, I don't know what else she said to the police, but there was the cop that was here that I was talking to. Well, there was another one down the street kind of hiding because I guess they did take it pretty seriously. And when my sister said, she's in the middle of a schizophrenic episode, like something could go wrong really fast. There was like backup just down, just down the street in case things, but she was very peaceful. She was very accommodating. She had her moments where she would, but she didn't show anger. She showed sadness and hurt. She, so I guess I really felt bad for her, and I really feel like she was, I don't know. I can't explain how she ended up here. She's not from here. She's from Illinois. Like she's not from this area. And, maybe in her mind, she saw Marco and got in her brain that a church in Marco can help me. And I kept saying, we're not an operating church. We're not a church anymore, but I do struggle with the whole, I understand it was a schizophrenic situation, but was there some spiritualness to it also?
I am a firm believer, especially with living with it for as long as I have, that there is the possibility that it could have been. And sometimes they just get something in their head and they run with it.
Mm-hmm.
But I've also struggled with my own gifts because of my mother, to be
Yeah.
honest, because
Yeah.
believe me, I'm a far cry from anything of, I'm not,
Right.
everybody has a little bit of whatever in them, but I'm definitely
Right.
not mentally unstable to that extent. But my mom
Right.
used to hear voices and stuff. And since I
Right. Right. And a lot of
it's a
people with
complex.
gifts are confused as being schizophrenic or having a mental issue or something. And then there's people with, like you said, they believe, I mean, that's her reality. She 100% believed that my dog was her dead dad that had come through and was contacting her. And she believed that fly was her husband stalking her. 100%. And then she was telling me how she could read brains, and FBI wants her to work with them because she can read brains. And she believes that. She thinks that she has a job waiting for her with the FBI anytime she wants to go because she believes that's, I mean, but I just, I feel so bad for her because she showed me, I looked her up on LinkedIn. Her wedding video is out on YouTube. I looked at that. She was so
Gosh,
normal. She was so normal. And I wonder if she always had these tendencies. It seems to me from what everything she told me and everything that happened that her dad dying was what sent her, was that defining time for her that just pushed her just over that edge that she had been walking on for so long. That's what happened. Just with everything she told me, but everything went back to her dad, and and then I mean all kinds of crazy stuff. And she was here for 3 hours. I mean, I entertained this lady for 3 hours because I at first I was, because me, I believe everything. Because anybody that believes in paranormal believes anything's possible. Anything is. So I'm trying to she would do these ugly cries and these far out statements and these stories and stuff. And which I do, I knew was not paranormal. I knew was not, it was insanity, but, um, it was hard for me to, I mean, anytime I feel like I could have said, okay, you need to leave now. And I think maybe she would have. My sister thinks she would not have, but I was, I guess, intrigued by it too, because it was such a crazy story. And she would talk about her spirit guide and how her spirit guide had guided her along all these journeys. And so I'm thinking, well, I mean, so many things did line up. There were a lot of synchronicities that kind of just made sense. But then you think, I know she's having an episode. I know really deep down that's what's happening. But is there something more to it? Can it be both? It can be both. It doesn't have to be one or the other. It can be both. Uh,
I firmly
maybe-
believe that.
Yeah. So I mean, but that just kind of goes back to the whole. I mean, I worked in downtown Cincinnati, gangs, drugs. I would leave work sometimes 8, 9 o'clock at night. I never felt afraid walking on the streets. We would go out after work. I've never felt afraid. I've lived in we lived in Jacksonville, Florida. There's a lot of stuff that goes on down there. I've never had so many weird things happen than the 2 years I've lived here. I mean, it's just like, so I really do think that's what makes me think there's something here. There's something here that brings in, maybe that's why I'm here. It brought in the weird. I don't know. It's like, maybe that was the pull. Maybe that's why I'm here. I don't know. But I do think that that's something that happens. So I don't know.
Well, now I kind of wonder what's going to happen when.
I know you bring here with your gifts and you'll pick up all this crazy stuff. Who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah, I'm excited though.
Yeah. Anyways,
I mean, the fact that it's such a little town just intrigues me in itself. I didn't realize that it was such a small town, but
tiny.
I, that I love small towns. They've always been fascinating to me. I grew up
Mhm.
in a very small town, so working in
Yep.
a city like blew me out of the water. Like that was a
Mhm.
whole cell shock for me. But
Mhm.
um, yeah, I'm excited. I
I
mean,
know.
I was excited before, but now I'm even more excited.
Yeah. I know, and
And
I hesitate sometimes. I think, how much do I tell people? Because some of it sounds so crazy. Like it really sounds like that can't all be what it is. But you know, and some people don't want to know. They want to just like you said. Some people like to go in blind, but they always end up like you. They always end up like, I need to know more. I need to know more. I don't know what it is, so I don't know. Is that something in the air too, forcing you to want to know more? I mean, does something want its story told? Maybe.
very well could be.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that's, I mean, I'm going to use your own words just so because I don't want to say anything out of turn, but if you're a beacon for weird, maybe that's why you're there, to bring
That's
all the paranormal people in
maybe,
to get
maybe
their stories out.
could be. Yeah. I don't
I
know.
mean,
We'll see.
I say that at work all the time. I'm like, why does all the weird crap happen every time I walk up to like an entrance or something? Because like, I swear it can be a completely normal day, and then like the strangest person will come in, and it's just like seriously. But
Yeah. Yeah. I know. And I, again, like, if it were just me, I would I would think it was just me. But like I said, my husband was so uh, not against it. He was never against it. He supported my craziness forever. But for him to actually recognize it was really a turning point, I think, or like a, a a strong validation for him to recognize it and to even accept it as something, because I know he would have never, he's not somebody that's going to just say okay just to go along with me. Always before it was, I would say, do you believe me? Like when something would happen, do you believe me? Not here, but he would say, I believe you think it happened. That was always his answer.
oh, yeah,
And that, because he didn't want to say, no, I think you're crazy, or I don't believe in that stuff or anything, but it was always, I believe you think it is true, or I believe that's what you believe or something. But now, when I will say, "Do you believe something is here?" He'll say, "Yeah, I don't have any other explanation for it. I believe it." So that was pretty huge, for that to happen. Then I know it's not just me because I want to believe, because you want, I think, as investigators or believers in the paranormal or something, I think we do look for things to validate, and we lean more on the side of, oh, it's true because this happened, or it's true because this happened. And we're more likely to lean on the, it's true because of this, instead of the, it's not true because of this. So for him to cross over from the, it's probably not true because this happened, to it's true because this happened, was kind of a big thing for me. So
I mean, it's always cool when you have that other person there that's like, "Yep, I believe you." That
yeah,
something like
yeah,
that. I
yeah.
mean, I always say I don't really care if you believe me because I believe me, but I mean, it's always nice to have that validation, like you said too. So,
Yeah. Well, and especially as being a location owner, like I had several teams, probably 10 teams come in, a couple of them more than once before I opened it up, because I would never charge people to come here and then be like, well, there's nothing there. Just because I thought there was something here. I really wanted that. I wanted other people, I wanted other opinions. And a lot of them have had similar experiences. Some have had very different experiences. But just because I believe something, you go into a place and your experience may be totally different than mine. But um, I really thought long and hard, because we had some teams, they're like, when are you going to open it up? Because I'd contacted them and asked them to come check it out. And I'm like, I don't know. I really just want to be sure, because I don't, because you don't want to, either you're always going to have people that did not have a good experience or did not have a lot of activity to say, well, I don't know, but that happens anywhere. But I didn't want to be that place, where people are like, well, no, there's really nothing there or something, just because. But now I guess I needed that validation, because I was branching beyond myself. I would be perfectly happy living here, just knowing that my people are here and we get along and we communicate and things like that. But for people to come in and do it, I really needed that additional validation for, before I would open that up.
oh, for sure. I guess I more so meant like I can't always describe how I feel in a location, so I can if even if you don't believe that I think that, I felt something cold on my arm, for example, or something like
Right,
that. Like there's just certain things that I'm not going to be able to have validated.
right.
Like I have a bizarre story where I saw shadows in complete darkness. And all five of us that were in there saw them, but it didn't get picked up on an infrared camera. Just I don't know if it was the energy, the way that the camera was set up, but we only have our word, but all five of us literally described the exact same thing. So I guess that's
Hmm.
kind of what I'm saying. Like there's just certain things that I can only have my word for.
Right, right. Right. And that's going to happen, because we're all going to have different experiences. And, like my husband has heard the little girl. I've never heard the little girl. I've asked the little girl to talk to me, and I've never heard her. I've just never, but he's heard her. Um, and maybe he reminds her of her dad, or, maybe she is seeking someone out that maybe, again, I feel like there's a lot of timidness here. Maybe it's just from the time where women and children were more side objects, they didn't have really a voice and things like that. So, side pieces, I didn't mean that.
I kind of what you meant.
But they didn't have that voice like they do today. We just had a team here Friday, and I knew right away, the it was a lady and two men, and the lady has a very strong personality, which I appreciate. As a woman, you want someone, because I do feel like, for a long time we didn't have that voice, but she had a very strong personality. And she got pretty sick. Like, she said one minute she was freezing, the next minute she was burning up, and she felt real weak and dizzy, and she had to lay down. And I thought, well, are you getting sick, or like, what's going on? And she said, no, because it passed. Like, after she kind of laid down and she kind of calmed herself down, whatever. But I always wonder if it was like that dark energy maybe knew she was a strong personality and a strong female personality, that it was trying to shut her down before she even got started.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, they ended up, after she said she had to lay down, like she was like freezing and then burning up. And I forgot what else she said, dizzy. And then the next morning, I think she said she had like a nosebleed or something. So, which was really odd. And that's what they had left on their comment. Like, they had some weird physical interactions, like with, I won't say attacked, but she felt it physically. The men did not have that same reaction. And I do believe it's because she had that strong personality as a female. So I do feel like there's that, whatever that energy is, I do feel like it wants to suppress females more. Um, that's just my belief, but you'll see when you get here.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah. So.
Well,
And I know I'm like, when I start talking, because there's so much, and it's like you can't it's all so connected. It takes a long time. Anyways, I get going and I can't shut up. So
no, that was absolutely fine. I have no problem. I'm just I feel like I have more hypothetical questions than anything. I just don't want to bombard anything. So, but I thoroughly enjoyed this chat, and I really appreciate your time and all of that. And I'm super excited.
I am too. I'm excited to see what you pick up here. So yeah. And thank you for having me on. It was, we are a new location, so we're trying to get our names out there and.
Yeah, absolutely. And any time. I mean, if you dig up anything else, I can always have you
Literally
back
dig up something. No.
No.
What you mean?
I guess that was a poor choice.
I will not be digging here. Trust me, I will not be digging around this area. I'm afraid of what might turn up. So
exactly. Poor choice of words on my end. There we go. I got it out that time. But this was a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to meeting you in person, and I'm really looking forward to being in the building and seeing everything that happens.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited for you to come. So
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you again. And I will be talking to you soon.
All righty. Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
As I wrap up my time with you today, I hope the ideas I've shared here on Beyond Logic with Tiffany have provided a fresh perspective, challenging you to think a little differently about the world. Before you go, I have a request. I'd love for you to share this episode with one friend, colleague, or family member who you think needs to hear this specific conversation. Spreading the word is the best way to help the Beyond Logic community grow. To stay connected with everything I do and get continuous content throughout the week, make sure you follow me on all my platforms. Facebook is where my community gathers. Join the conversation, share your thoughts on the episode, and get exclusive behind-the-scenes content and Q&As. If you're on YouTube, head over to my channel to watch the full video version of this podcast and check out extended interviews and deep dives. For short, impactful, and shareable clips, follow me on TikTok. You can find all 3 platforms easily by searching for Beyond Logic with Tiffany. Until next time, keep questioning the narrative, keep exploring the possibilities, and stay beyond logic.